we pick up right where we left off with June staring dumbly at Moira. And June isn't really seeing Moira, though, because she's really seeing a Moira flashback. This was so beautifully done.
Mm-hmm.
She's obviously had the senses, like, knocked right out of her. And, speaking of mimosas, they don't pour themselves, June. They're having snowy day mimosas. Oh, man, I could go for a snowy day mimosa.
Right?
That just sounds nice to actually have, like, a day where you can't go anywhere and you can't do anything and you just snuggle up with, like, a book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, can I have some of that right now?
Right. Absolutely. And what I love the transition on this too, because we start with hearing the burning sounds. It's very clear that Chicago is burning, and the ash is falling from the sky like snow, and that's what they used for their transition. I thought it was so clever and gorgeous. But yeah, I'm with you guys on that. I loved that June and Moira decided to be snowed in together, and June got a phone call, looked at the phone, looked at Moira, then just flipped the phone closed, and Moira just says, "Thank you." Like, understood that these two are thick as thieves, and they are going to take the time to lean in to just enjoy the time with each other. I think it's perfect. And it's exactly the sort of thing that you would expect from an intimate, established relationship. Reading the newspaper, like, they're not necessarily engaging with each other. They're just in each other's vicinity. And that's enough. And that's the sort of thing that you would expect from, like, a close, intimate relationship after at a long, or that had, like, seen some, that was a bit more long term. So I thought it was a really darling way to present them.
And it reminded me of that scene with Serena in the office with the Easy Like Sunday Morning playing. And
yeah,
you described it like the same way. Like, when we talked about that, it was that same thing of, like, there's this shared intimacy as they just kind of work side by side without, like, there's this relationship that just grew, like, overnight between the end of the episode and the first. And yeah, that's exactly, it just parallels it in a weird way. I don't really know what I'm getting out of it other than it just reminded me of it.
See, I wonder if that phone call, though, was foreshadowing of the controversy that we were going to see a little further down in the episode, because June looks at it, she considers whether or not she's going to answer it. Moira's looking at her, and she just puts it down and ignores the call. So I wonder if that call was Luke.
Oh, yeah. Almost certainly.
So that's kind of like your first clue that all is not right with this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, to me, it was also that implication of, we start the episode with Moira being the most important person in June's life, and then we make that transition to Luke being Luke being more important, or at least that's how Moira takes it. Moira sort of, like, feels as though she's being replaced in a way. But then it comes back to Moira being insanely important to June. So I think that it was a nice balancing act. I think, like, it's very strongly hinted at that phone call was Luke.
Yeah. And we definitely, we can see how Moira is about their relationship, and how Moira does feel kind of like, she does feel put out by the fact that June is in this relationship with him. But the way that they shot this with, like, going into the flashback and then coming out of it, and Moira is saying, "Holy shit, June, it's me, Moira, your friend, Moira." I almost feel like that ties into the flashback, because she's kind of in every flashback like, "Hey, I'm over here, like, I'm trying to tell you something important, like, hey, pay attention." Like, it's kind of like a thing that goes on throughout the whole thing. It like really just sets the tone for the whole episode.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I know I get it later, but I totally didn't pick up on it right in that scene. That's really cool.
Yeah, I didn't really pick up on it until, like, right now, as we were, like, hashing out, like, how, like, what the transition was like, and I realized that the transition meant so much more.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Moira does a fantastic job of handling June while June is in shock as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because, like, Moira sees June. June's looking right past her. And when Moira's like pleading with her, it's me, your friend, Moira. I didn't catch what June said, like something like about Moira, but then she just kept saying, Janine, I have to find Janine. And Moira was was chasing after her, and then sort of kicked into that mode that like knew immediately how to handle June. Like, I think I know where she is. If she like she's probably at the medical tent, she's probably this way. And like it was wonderful watching that, because dealing with anyone in shock is a very difficult thing to do, but to be able to rein someone that is in shock back that quickly shows a more intimate knowledge than even just a friendship or a kinship.
See, I didn't really see it as them as the magic that Moira was able to work on her as really, oh my god, how do I want to word this, as like evidence of how well she knows June. I kind of looked at it as she had to kick herself into like volunteer mode to start kind of talking to June like she would anyone else to rein her back in, because nothing was sinking in. I think she was so out of it and so messed up from the blast that it wasn't registering with her that she was even talking to Moira.
Right. Well, yeah, because I think she doesn't want to even believe that she's really there. What she says to her, what June says back to Moira at one point is, "No, you're not." Something like, "You're not Moira. Moira got out. Moira's in Canada."
Yeah,
and
Moira
then just
got out.
proceeds to ignore her from that point on. And to me, I just took it as like that's June just trying to figure out what's real and what's not, and she can't even like acknowledge this mirage that is Moira right now because she needs to focus on finding Janine. I do think that I agree with you that Moira had to kind of kick it into a different gear, because I think that Moira is probably in a lot of shock too. Obviously, June has the physical shock, but it has to be a lot for Moira. Like, I don't think she necessarily imagined at all that this trip was going to turn up with June. I think it was more, I mean, I'm not positive if there was any intel back to Canada that June got out again. But last we knew, Moira thought June was captured. So I took it as she's going on these missions kind of to perpetuate her legacy and to do what June was doing, of trying to fight back to Gilead and help Gilead in some way. I don't think she was necessarily trying to actually extract June from this trip. And so that's just got to be so wild to all of a sudden the dust clears and June's standing right there, and then she doesn't even recognize her, and that's hard too. And so I think that when Moira snapped into just giving directions and trying to get her to where she needed to go, it was really of just like she was just trying to almost one step at a time, like one foot in front of the other. Let me just get her to one spot any way that I can.
I can definitely see that. I think I'm gonna push back slightly, because I do think that like I agree that this has got to be a massive shock to Moira. I do think I'm gonna stick by my guns here about Moira knowing how to handle her, because she knows June so well, and knowing that June isn't gonna leave without finding Janine, or isn't gonna leave unless she can give her direction to find Janine. So I think like that's why it was so important to be like, she's at a medical tent. We'll go to the medical tent so we can find Janine there, and then we can get you checked out too. But like shifting the focus away from June, because June's focus wasn't on herself at all. And I think she was able to do that so quickly because she understands June's nature. Also, can you clarify something for me? You had said that you think that Moira's going on these humanitarian missions to kind of carry on June's legacy. I was operating under the assumption that this is the first one that she's been on.
Yeah. It is. I agree with that, but I think she didn't go until after June got caught.
I think that she just that she didn't go because no one had invited her.
Yeah, that's fair too. But I still don't like. All I'm saying is she went. This was absolutely her first time, and that again, that's why I just don't think she was going to find June. I think she was just going.
No, of course not.
To feel active again. Everything that we were talking about in that episode of she just feels like she's spinning her wheels. It's not the Moira that we know. June's doing this thing, and she's not doing anything. And I think that was her being pushed. All she needed was Oona to say, "You should come," and then she went.
Yeah. I don't think she was going to try to like continue June's legacy. I think it was her way of trying to fight against Gilead in the way that she could.
Yeah, but that's
So,
what I mean by June's legacy, because I guess that's what I'm saying is that June has done everything she can to fight against Gilead, and Moira is going to
Mhm.
continue to fight against Gilead now that June's captured. That's what I mean.
Okay. I can see where you're going with that. I would disagree that it's simply because of June being captured. I think it was just a
Yeah,
matter of timing, but I like where you're going with it.
it's all the things.
either way, June is not very cogent right now, and this clearly scares and frustrates Moira.
Mhm.
Because dealing with injured people who are not in their right mind is really hard. It's not great, and June is borderline hysterical right now, and all she knows is that she's supposed to keep track of Janine, and she can't find Janine. Do we want to go to them in the truck?
Yeah, let's go to the truck.
So now they're in a truck, they're on the move to go to some warehouse facility, and like Moira and June in the back of this truck. Oh my heart. I cry again. I just can't with this fucking scene. Like, Moira wants June looked at, and they're assessing her, and she's likely concussed. And that moment that June recognizes her, I was like bawling my eyes out again. I just can't even. And they just say hi over and over again. That's oh man, oh I can't.
Mm-hmm.
They say hi over and over again, but then June is like, no, why are you here? It's not safe. You're so crazy. You shouldn't be here. And which just doubles down on everything that we always say about June, that she like has this innate need to, and desire and drive to take care of the people around her. And she also loves Moira so dearly and can't fathom why the fuck she would be there. Moira just broke me in this. Like, no, I found you. I got you. And like, literally and figuratively, and it just like that's the part that ruined me.
Yeah, I'm gonna take care of you, and that's all I've wanted was for somebody to look out for June. It's you know, she has had people looking out for her, but not really anybody to take care of her. And God, if there was ever a person who just needs to lay down the load already and just have a time out, it's her. And I'm glad that that person that's going to be there for her to help her is Moira. We got the reunion we wanted to see.
When she needed it most, because
Yeah.
like Moira says later, she's not going to make it much further.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is exactly like it was so amazing. We said this in the beginning, and it was so amazing having this reunion. But I think that this is such an authentic reunion for them. It was so gratifying watching June just feel comfortable enough and safe enough to start letting her guard down and start being emotional. And I think like this is part of this. This is when she started to like not just snap out of her state of shock, but really start to let her walls down, where we see the full breakdown throughout the episode. Like this for her is like that first like, oh fuck, like I couldn't even keep like Moira out and safe, and now Moira's back, and like I think like this is what kind of got the wheels in motion for her.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it like that.
So the truck pulls up onto a dock, and we see that it is a Sarah Warzone effort. So Sarah, it's a commission emergency relief aid effort. Anyway,
Yeah.
and it looks like something out of a third world country. And they're breaking down the relief zone because they have reports of that the bombing is going to start again, and they can't leave the supplies because those people will kill each other just to get the supplies.
That was something else.
Right.
This was a really hard interaction to watch because this is where you start to see the disconnect between Oona and Moira. I realize that it's like, pandemonium and stuff. I mean, this is not the time or place for them to have a serious discussion of the nature that they need to, And at first I thought it was appalling that they're not leaving the supplies. Like, can we talk about them not leaving the supplies? Jesus Christ. They'll kill each other for the supplies. Well, most of them are probably going to die anyway by somebody else's hands. So maybe just leave the fucking supplies there, and then whoever does make it out alive, because these people are looking at certain death, at least they've got something maybe to keep going on after.
Right.
I don't know. This just kind of
I mean, that goes back to every conversation
freaked
we
me
have
out.
about June and every conversation that they continue to have through this episode of,
No.
I mean, you can look at it as if you leave them, then you're kind of adding to the pandemonium and the chaos and, killing people that may have survived otherwise. But how do you know? You don't know. I see what you're saying. I think the supplies there are better than the supplies not, but it's just, you're in a no-win situation.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm inclined to agree. Like there's neither situation is better than the other. If you leave the supplies, then you know that people are going to be killing one another to be able to get them, and that's turning refugees against each other, which is a terrible thing to ask and a terrible thing to do. But to that same effect, if you leave the supplies, exactly like you said, it's giving some people a chance to survive. I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer here.
Yeah.
Other than had they, I think what could have been happened was maybe, I mean, I can't imagine who would volunteer to stay behind, but perhaps they have like someone designated from the American side to come in and distribute, but like these people are all panicked and looking for any relief they
They
can.
get overwhelmed really quick. They couldn't do it.
Yeah, there's no one that they could realistically trust to do that. Yeah, I don't have an elegant answer here.
Yeah.
I don't know what the moral solution would be.
Well, when Moira tells Oona about June, like Oona won't even let her talk it out. She's just like, "Hey, it's great you found your friend. Here, have a hug. Yeah, I get that this is hard." And not even saying that I get that this is hard in relation to the fact that you have to like leave June behind. She thinks that she's kind of referring to the fact that all of this is hard. Like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and then she assumes that Moira thinks June is more important than every one of them. And I'm like, I just don't really think she realizes in this moment what she's asking Moira to do.
Right.
This is an impossible situation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's brutal.
And Oona doesn't get that.
Oh man, when I realized what they were asking Moira to do, I had the same reaction she had of like, no, fuck that. Like, no, you can't ask her to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, that was brutal.
It was. And part of me wants to say that because Una's been on missions like this before, that she's become a bit desensitized to it. Or not desensitized, but she's become hardened to it.
Yeah.
And she still understands the gravity of what she sees around her, but like to not be able to even to disassociate so much that she can't even make that initial like one-on-one connection with Moira, and how important June is to her, and how important June is to the resistance and everything else. Like it's like she doesn't, perhaps she's better adjusted at being able to like just wall that part of her brain off because she's had to, but I don't know, like it just seems like psychopathic behavior.
Oh no, I didn't think that. I thought she was incredibly, I understand that she should have, I was surprised that she didn't show a little bit more empathy towards Moira's specific plight, but they're getting bombed. Like there's not a lot of time for this conversation other than she can't come, period. She just can't. It's not that she's heartless or even hardened to it, other than exactly what she said of this, I see this all the time. She just sees June as one person and everyone else as also a lot of people. So yes, Moira has a connection to June. Yes, we know it's devastating for Moira, and Oona should too, and that's where I think it was a little like jarring to me. But for the most part, her behavior is one of a really good leader, doing the best thing for the most amount of people. Unfortunately, right now in this situation, that is not for Moira.
That is not for Moira, because what Moira needs right now, she doesn't need her leader. She kind of needs the person who she thought cared about her to understand the gravity of what's happening. And that is where this work relationship is probably not going to work out.
That's what. No,
Yeah.
this was not a great
Mm-mm.
scenario for this relationship to play out in.
Agreed. And that's where I think like that Una, obviously there's not enough time to discuss what's happening. They are about to be bombed. And also that fence is about to come down. Like they need to go and they need to go
Mhm.
quickly. But I think like this would have been an opportunity for Una to at least be like, I can't understand what this feels like. And my heart is going out to you right now. I've left people behind too. I've had to leave people behind.
Yeah.
I know how hard this is. Like that like there was an opportunity to say something like that and not just be quite calloused is the wrong word for it.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe just clinical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I felt like even her hug was really stilted. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like that was made me the most uncomfortable. I feel like that's the first thing that put up red flags of like, why did she do it like that? Like it just felt really like, I guess I hug you here, but like, okay, now go. Like but I understand what she's saying of, you know, the rules. And I totally get why they can't take her. Like I understand all of it other than the workplace relationship isn't really working out here, and Una seems to be very focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's getting everyone out.
Yeah.